Good morning. This is Prasanta Kalita from the University of Illinois. First of all, I thank all the conference organizers for giving me this opportunity for talking about water quality and some of the environmental engineering related topic here today. I am going to share my screen. So my presentation is titled Water Resources and Environmental Sustainability and a Global Perspective. So as you can see, my presentation will be mostly through this PowerPoint slides, and I am going to show you the few different projects on environmental sustainability type of work that we have been working on, and also got some significant results from this work out there. So I have more introduction of myself, a professor and leader of soil and water resources engineering. We do lots of water quality, environmental sustainability work at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and my contact information is right there. My email is pkalita@illinois.edu. We know the 21st century, we have a lot of challenges for water resources and environmental sustainability. There is not enough water for humankind to meet the demands of the growing economies in terms of food production, irrigation, industry, drinking water, health, and sanitation. We all know that our groundwater is depleting and water table is lowering. So that makes it difficult for accessing the subsurface water for any purposes. Increasing cost of developing new water supplies, as well as you have non-distribution of water resources among and within countries. Water quality may be said that is the single largest threat to human health and food security today. We have a lot of water pollution happening from industrial, municipal, and agricultural sources. Both point source and non-point source of pollution are dominating many parts of the world, and our environmental degradation is happening significantly. Majority of drinking water supplies in the developing world are contaminated. We know that a lot of waterborne diseases are happening, and they're increasing from pesticides, heavy metals, and nutrients, and pathogens. Microbial pathogens contribute significantly to the pool of diseases that the humans suffer. Food safety is a big issue. When you wash fresh vegetable or meat and others with water that is bad quality, we may have severe health problems. Our whole ecosystem, water-related ecosystem, is degraded, and that's why we say that our human sustainability can be at greater risk. We need policies, we need market-driven water policies for water conservation, so that we not only preserve our water, but also preserve the good quality water for future generation. This is to demonstrate how the human population is increasing and how the demand for water is increasing on our society. By the year 2100, we will have more than 10 billion people on this planet. Currently, we have about 7.5. So about another 3 billion people are coming, and most of the increases are going to happen in Asia and Africa. In terms of water, currently about 70% of all available water goes into agricultural food production. Another 20% goes into domestic use for our drinking, for example, and another 10% goes into industry. Now, with the more people coming, more food needs to be produced, more drinking water would be needed, and more industrialization is happening. Every sector needs more water. How are we going to support our planet, our human civilization. And that is why we need to all work together to make sure that we conserve and we reduce waste, we conserve our water, and we preserve the water quality for our future generation. On top of that, we have climate change. As you all know, that is a major threat to a lot of our current things that we depend on: food, water, ecosystem, and many of the extreme weather conditions. This slide depicts each degree temperature increase, how our problem will be severe in terms of food, water, and ecosystem. As you can see, with more temperature rising, our crops will have less and less yield, less production. Water will have severe impacts, as much as to say the sea level rise will happen and will threaten the major cities in the world. Ecosystem, rising number of species will extinct. Severe weather conditions, people are already facing that. Frequent droughts, frequent flooding, and the frequent heat waves are already coming. So among all that challenges, we also have the climate change challenge, and that is all these things together must push us, the scientists and engineers and technologists and policymakers, to make sure that we work together for water savings and water quality savings and environmental preservation out there, and sustaining our environment as is for future generation. This is an example of, it's not for the United States. As you can see, our lakes and rivers are very polluted. This is a diagram of the pollution in river. About 266,000 kilometers of rivers are mostly polluted with sediment, 47%, and others have nutrients, pathogens, acids, toxic, heavy metals, and all these things constitute the other 53%. Similarly, about 3.3 million hectares of the lake surface areas, we have about close to 60% is polluted with nutrients, mostly nitrogen, phosphorus, and those kind of elements. And the others, we have sediment, acid, toxic, pathogens, and all out there. So these are mostly results of non-point source pollution. Means it's very difficult to identify exactly where the sources are coming from and where it is reacting and interacting with the environment. This is another unique situation here at the in the mid central part of the United States. We have a lot of subsurface drainage. So the hydrologic cycle kind of is modified here. So the subsurface drainage are installed to drain all the water to prevent flooding. But these drains, what it's doing, also draining all the chemicals from the field, the nitrogen, phosphorus, pesticides, and other organic materials, also short-circuiting from the soil, from the field into our river. So that is creating a lot of problem, and one of the biggest water quality problem that we have it here, we call it the hypoxic zone. This is the map of the United States, and all these areas that I have shown here, they finally contribute through one of the largest rivers, Mississippi River, into the Gulf of Mexico here, and we have created an hypoxic zone. A hypoxic zone means lots of algae, lots of nutrients, and we have less oxygen in that area. So this hypoxic zone is about 22,720 square kilometer area. So it's very severe, and every year this area keeps increasing in surface area as well as in the depth. Right now, that is one of the major problems. And we all are working on how to reduce the nitrogen and phosphorus and other chemicals from getting into that through the river, and work for the best solution that people can afford out there. This is a demonstration of how that hypoxia happened. It means a nutrient-rich water gets into the water and the algae grow. And then when the algae grow, eventually they die. And then it depletes the oxygen when the algae gets decomposed. And that less oxygen or of oxygen deficient water creates havoc in the aquatic life. So fish dies and many other systems in the aquatic life, they suffer. This is another demonstration of eutrophication. The nitrogen and phosphorus, they promote algae growth, and then the bacteria break down the algae, and eventually the low oxygen level happens. And if that happens, there is a prominent phenomenon, we call it fish kill, that we see from time to time. So because of low oxygen level in water, fish dies, as well as many other aquatic ecosystems suffer out there. So what we have done to tackle that hypoxic problem, we have developed subsurface bioreactors. Here is a schematic example of subsurface bioreactor. Here is a field diagram where we install it. So basically, when the subsurface water comes into the edge of the field, we contain it in the field, in that bioreactor, and we let the nutrients get degraded here. And how does that happen? We fill this bioreactor with wood chips. Wood chips have a lot of carbon, and the carbon provides as a food source for the bacteria and fungi that can break down the nitrate component of the nitrogen. And then eventually nitrogen gas will be released into the atmosphere, and relatively clean water will get into our river or lake system. We have been collecting a lot of data for last 12, 14 years out there, and we have perfected the system. Now we're installing that as one of the infrastructure for water quality improvement from agricultural runoff and agricultural nitrogen and phosphorus runoff. The way the system works, as I have mentioned, the wood chips have a lot of this cellulose and other things, and then the bacteria and fungi, they live on those, and then they break down this NO3 and into NO2, N2, and N2 is released into the atmosphere, and relatively clean water gets into our water system. We do lots of field measurements, automatic monitoring stations, automatic water collection system, and we do lots of mathematical modeling to define the subsurface drainage water, the quantity, their interactions, along with the water table depths on the field, the river flow, and all those kind of things. Some of the models that we use heavily is ModFlow and many others that we have developed. In terms of microbial pathogens, we have worked with several of them. One of the very dangerous microbial pathogen is Cryptosporidium. It usually comes from wild animals or animal feedlots into water. So what happened when the Cryptosporidium gets into our water, and if people drink it by mistake, or if they go to a swimming pool, if they swim and somehow these microbial pathogens get into their bodies, they can have symptoms like diarrhea and abdominal cramps, pains, fever, and nausea. And for immunocompromised people, this can be fatal. So we need to work, and we have worked for many years in characterizing these microbial pathogens and designing vegetated filter strips to control that. We have been very successful. We have published lots of paper on it, and we also do lots of computer modeling. And this modeling helped us in defining the parameters of the spread of these microbial pathogens, and also help us designing the vegetated filter strip length, width, and strategic location where you need to put these vegetated filters to control. The vegetated filter strips collectively control not only microbial pathogen, but also pesticides and other organic chemicals that run through surface runoff system out there. So there are many other best management practices that we all work with, and we would love to share many other details with you if needed. Another problem that we are facing, and especially in some of the Asian countries, the rice production. As we know, our 60% of the world population depend on rice as a staple food, but rice is also the highest water demanding food. With climate change, with less water available, will we be able to sustain rice production? And if we do, what kind of modifications we need to do? How can we keep growing rice or even increase the rice production with less water? We did lots of modeling, crop modeling, climate change modeling. This is a recent paper was published in Water in last year. And we looked at the climatic data, the weather data, the crop data, rice data for last 20, 30 years. And then we worked with the decision support system, DSAD model. And then along with the crop growth and other information from the agronomic point of view, we worked with 4 different global climate models. And for each of the global climate model, we also work with different severity of the changes, mild, moderate, high, moderate, and extreme climate change scenarios. And then we do the crop growth prediction, water requirement prediction for the future year. So as a result, you can see change in the rice yield, change in phenological days, and change in water requirement. We got plenty of data, but I'm going to show you only these 3. Let's say for current rice production, we need about 24% irrigation requirement. But if we have to increase the rice production to 60% to meet the demand of the increasing population, we will need 41% irrigation, very high, but if we do water conservation, if we do direct seeding, if we do residue management, if we change some of the phenological days and other not too difficult practices to change, we can grow rice not only for current yield, but a 60% increase in yield production with only 21% irrigation requirement compared to 24 or 41%. Now, here you see a 20% reduction in water. That's a significant savings in water, and we can do that. All we have to do is do some scientific investigation, develop methodology, try that, and then adopt those practices. This will save our water, and we will be able to produce more crop, and similar modeling can be done by other crops. Another ways to get more water for reuse is the wastewater from industries. Industrial wastewater usually comes with lots of heavy metals and other things that you cannot use for any other purposes because it will destroy the system. It will damage the system. If you put that as irrigation, it will damage your soils and other things. We try some locally available materials to remove these heavy metals from, this is an area that we tried, heavy metals from the industrial wastewater. These are various different metals that we tried: aluminum, arsenic, boron, cadmium, chromium, copper, fluoride, iron, lead, nickel, selenium, and zinc. And we have found some very good results. I'm showing you an example of nickel and chromium. These are the breakthrough curves. It shows you how much is displaced versus the concentration of each of these chemicals. And these results help us defining the parameters for designing the filter, the materials, the depth, the flow rate, the retention capacity, all those kind of things we have developed. So these results tell that we can develop economically viable treatment methods and materials for industrial wastewater. And if more real world field experiments needed, from these results, we can develop the filters and filter our industrial wastewater and use that water for crops or flowers or ornamental plants, and then do some long-term experiments to look at this sustainability. So that's all I wanted to share. Again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to share about water, environmental engineering, and water quality work and the sustainability work with all of you. So with that, I end my presentation right here. Thank you very much.